All right. Well, hello everyone and welcome back. We missed last week, but we're here again. I know you missed all of us so much. So, it's me, your favorite Jackson. And joining me tonight is my host and co-host, Peter.
Hello. The
Welcome,
reason
welcome.
the reason why we weren't here last week because I wasn't here last week, and
It's
and
all right. It happens.
and I was almost left in the dark today because one of my
Uh-oh.
lights cut out and took an early retirement. So now I have a nice shade of orange on this side and a perfectly good shade on that side and some weird shit going on in the back because my green screen
Yeah,
is no longer
you
working.
got a swarm of angry bees in the corner, it
Yeah,
looks like.
yeah. I mean,
I think PZ had that one time. We had him on, and he had like that swarm of angry bees in the corner.
it happens
So
if your lights aren't working. I need to see
yeah,
what's going on. I just hooked up a new light. Probably I don't know. Our power supply
yeah.
probably broke. Who knows?
Uh, and also joining us is one of my editors, Nestlig.
Hello, good to be
Welcome,
back.
welcome.
Also,
Good.
now that I have the opportunity, I want to congratulate you for your graduation.
Oh, thank you. That is almost or the commencement itself is almost exactly 1 month from today. It's
Hmm.
the December 15th. So
Mhm.
yay! Ooh, I'll be a whole master's student. Yeah, or a whole master's holder, I guess. I am the master student currently. So,
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
so that's fun. Um, we got 12 people in chat right now. Wow, that's a lot of people. Vesta Freya, DM answers in Gojira Wing, Smitty, Alex Markle, Ian Debunked, Captive Desk, and then I just saw Trail Mix, and Jake Nelson, and Majestic P Beck. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Yes, everyone's commenting on the Tetra. It's relevant to the video we're going to watch.
Mhm.
So I guess a little bit of backstory. Um, and Brian Stevens, welcome. Even if you're semi-present, the digital hornets. That's funny. So I was, doing what I always do, getting into arguments with creationists on Twitter. Uh, and one of them sent me the video we are going to watch, and I have not watched it yet. I read the description because the description is very dumb, and I mean, I'm sure he'll go over it in the video. Dragon Spartan 90 official says Jackson's in the pocket of big fish. Yes, what a good movie. If you guys haven't
Mhm.
seen Big Fish, it's got Ewan McGregor. It's a really good movie. Um, um, well, I'm not going to spoil the surprise for you. You'll see what it is. It is a particularly um special kind of stupid that we are going to bear witness to tonight. I'm almost
Well,
excited
it's
actually.
Calvin Smith. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't have any high hopes to begin with when I saw the name. I mean, this is I've been for people who are not aware of who this guy is. He's now I think the head of Answers in Genesis in Canada, and he
I
used to
think you're right.
be one of the co-hosts on the CMI TV show that debunks
Mm-hmm.
everything that you couldn't debunk because it's a fact on Creation Ministries International. Uh,
Right.
one of the
And we are an
most
international show.
yeah, and if you're going to watch it right now, they have cloned one of their hosts, so now you have two exactly the same hosts yet slightly different. It's even more cringe, and they have a really. I have a fake set right behind me, but my fake set isn't as stupid as the one that they have. I have to say.
I
I
haven't
mean,
seen the one that they have. What do they have?
they've got a T-Rex skull with the blue light where the brain is, and then they've got a knight's armor, and then obviously a large bookcase and a fireplace, which is always on
They
while
want you to think that they read.
it's always summer outside. I have no clue why the fireplace is on, but I mean,
Yeah. Jake Nelson for $10 says, Jackson, keep it going. We need to see Dr. Wheat. Well, I do
Mhm.
plan on that. I do plan on going to get my doctorate and teaching at a collegiate level and doing research and all that jazz because that's what I like. I like doing all that stuff. Um, Unfortunately, I can't do that here in my lovely hometown of Shreveport. Um, I have to go elsewhere. We don't have any doctoral programs. Well, we don't have any like biology research doctoral programs. We have you can get medical, you can get your MD here. We've got a big teaching hospital and all that jazz. We've got like lots of state of the art hospital laboratories and stuff like that. But we have no like chem, PhDs, no biology PhDs, none of that sort of stuff. Sadly, it's all MD stuff here. We're a big hospital centric town, so um, so I have to
on
go somewhere else. I could go to Baton Rouge, or Dallas is relatively nearby, or if you go the other direction, Jackson, Mississippi. So all depends.
Dallas, that would mean you would be pretty close to Arn.
Like
That-
like what 5 hours? I think 5-6 hours from because he's moving. Isn't he moving or
No?
is he still in Dallas?
Well, in
I
one
thought he
of
was moving.
one of the suburbs. No, he's been looking into moving, but he hasn't moved yet. So
Yeah. Yeah.
also,
Okay.
Alex Markel. We don't have the petition to make a petition to save the T-Rex skull because it's a virtual skull. It is as real as the studio you see behind me, because that's all Photoshop. So it's that kind of thing.
Wasn't there was like there was some fanfare over I think it was an allosaur skeleton that's in like um the Creation Museum or something, isn't there? And it's like it's an actual good condition allosaur skeleton or something like that. Never
Really?
a lot of people were like, "Man, it's really sad that that it's in there," and I
It,
agree.
I did hear that they
Is
got.
it like a cast or a real fossil, an actual fossil?
No, I think it was like an actual allosaur skeleton, something like
Yes.
that.
Wow,
I think I remember
what a
hearing about that.
Yeah,
what a
and
waste.
I think they've got
Right,
more than one real skeleton from something.
right,
It
yeah.
it's mind-boggling that they've got this amount of money so that they can actually buy stuff like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, as we discussed on our last show, young Earth creationists exist at some of the highest courts in the land now. We literally have a young Earth creationist as the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
So from my lovely little state, so that's great. It's wonderful. Love to see it.
Well,
There's that.
it could be worse. I have a co-host called Autumn's Brain Sample. He's from Indiana. He's from the state that gave you Mike Pence. So it could be worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, barely. We've had some pretty interesting characters coming out of Louisiana. Look up Huey P. Long if you guys have never heard of him. He's an interesting character. But anyways, not a history lesson tonight. Or Edwin Edwards, that's another one. So anyway, so a creationist sent me this video. Oh, I did want to say one other thing. I thought you might appreciate this, Peter. I made a lot of Frank Turek fans really angry today. Because so Wendell, who's a creationist on Twitter,
Wendell talks. I wish he wouldn't.
yeah, very true. I actually ratioed him 3 times this week, so I think legally I own his account now. And twice on the same post. Oh, another 10. Jake Nelson, thank you, $10. We're all well to keep throwing money at you. You're fighting the good fight. Go wherever you need to go. We'll support you. I appreciate that. If Florida weren't a fascist state, I would probably be more interested in moving there. They have a lot of really good opportunities there in Florida. It's just, you know, a fascist state. So there's that. So that's not great. Because I mean, they have some of like the world's most premier, marine biological institutions.
I'm going to
Just
I'm going to
you know,
lose all respect. If you're really going to say that you want to be a Florida man, I mean, we can't have that, Jackson.
listen, the South is the weather for me. I like warm. I do not like cold. Which is I don't want to move anywhere that like where I know we're gonna get snow and it's gonna stick for like a week. I don't like that. When we have that here in Louisiana, everyone's like freaking out. It's not right.
Mhm.
Not a fan. Um, I know that's where Dapper would come in and say, "Aha, we'll move out west," which,
Yeah.
maybe one day. I don't know. I'll think about it. But
Doesn't it snow normally where you are, or does it in the winter?
so yes and no. Normally when we get snow, it doesn't stick.
Mm.
So like it'll snow a little bit. Maybe you'll get some frost, etc. But it'll go away. Not last year. 2 years ago, in early 2021, we had an abnormal winter where it like we had like below freezing
Oh
for
yeah,
a week. And I know that you guys are like, that's nothing. But listen, for Louisiana, that we don't have the water or electrical infrastructure to deal with that kind of stuff, which I know we should,
yeah.
but
I've heard.
we don't.
Yeah, I've heard that the grid was like pretty broken during that time, especially in Texas, because
Yes,
the Texas
Texas.
grid is separate from the
Yes.
other grids. Yeah.
Yeah, so with Texas, a lot of their, like I said, their water, their electrical infrastructure was not prepared for it, and large cities suffered, and a lot of people suffered as a result.
Mhm.
Um, and the governor of Texas decided to go on vacation to
Well,
Cancun.
yeah,
While
because
the
it's
city
The
was
right
freezing.
timing.
because it's nice and warm, and he could blame his daughter for it. Remember?
That he did do that. He sure did say, "Oh well, it was
Yeah.
what was like his daughter's graduation or something like that," and he was like, "Oh, it's her fault. Don't blame me."
Yeah.
But was it planned beforehand or not planned beforehand?
It
Like
was
if it was planned, then I would give him some
I mean, it was
doubts. But
probably
yeah,
they probably did plan it in advance. I mean, if
yeah, but
if she was
of course,
indeed
I think
graduating,
I think in need of crisis that he is obligated to stay.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
my opinion.
at the
Yeah.
very least, like sorry, senator, not governor. Yes, sorry, senator. Sorry, yeah. Yes, he could have, and indeed he could have sent his family, said like, I have to handle this. We have a crisis. You go, I'll
Hmm.
stay. Like, okay,
Mhm.
I would have
Yeah.
understood that. That would have been something. Um, yeah, but nope, that's not what happened.
That would have
Yeah,
been
it was
actually
very
him
funny.
committing to his job. That's a
Right,
little bit too far fetched, Jackson. We can't have things like that.
right,
I
right.
mean,
but but anyway, yeah. So it's all very silly. So anyway, back to the story. I angered a bunch of Frank Turek fans because Wendell said is professing his love for Frank Turek, and I pointed out that Frank Turek is an idiot. Um, and a whole bunch of Frank Turek fans got really mad.
mhm.
They're all like, "Why don't you go debate him?" And I said, "Well, if he wants to come on the channel, I'd love to talk to him. We could have a perfectly amicable chat. It'd be fine."
Yeah.
Oh.
Um, or
Uh,
they were like, "Oh, why didn't you tag him in this post?" I said, "Because he doesn't read his Twitter. I don't think he even. I'm pretty sure he doesn't even post on Twitter. I'm pretty sure it's like someone posting for him, which is fine. I mean, that a lot of more famous people do that. That they have someone who posts on an account for them. Oh, Savage Antipodal Bearing Shores Cobra for $5 says, "I got stuck in Fort Worth on work for that. Ask me how much I hate Ted Cruz and the Texas government." I'm gonna guess it's a lot. Is it a lot, Savage Cobra? You hate them a lot. But
I also find it very frustrating how it always has to be a debate with these guys. Like, let's establish a debate right here and now. Like, why? Like, well, isn't it so tiring to have this mindset all the time to say like, oh, I if you don't accept my debate offer, then you're a coward. Like that. Like these people are insufferable. In my opinion.
Just before
I agree.
Just before you arrived here, I was talking to Nestlake because I was looking at your Twitter account, and there was this one guy who wanted you to debate. He wanted to debate you, and he wanted to have well, let's call her she whose name shall not be named as a moderator. Some professor.
Nestle?
No. Someone who responded to one of your Turek tweets.
Oh, he
a
did.
guy
I don't think
called
he responded to that. I think it was just like out of the blue.
A guy called Red Pill Apologist.
Yeah, I saw him. He sent me a message, and I said, he said, "Hey, would you come on debate me?" And I said, "Well, what topic?" And he said, oh shoot, what was the topic?
Something to the effect of like how science points to God.
Right, and honestly, I don't care. Like if you're, I don't care whether you believe in God or not. Like that's not my issue. I don't care. As long as you can do the science, and if you say science points to creationism, we have a problem. If you say, oh well, I do science because I believe it gets me closer to God, fine. That's fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I don't care. And I told him, I was like, that's not an issue for me. And he also sent me a message that was like, we could talk about the compatibility of science and religion. And I was like, well, yeah. I don't think they're at odds. So again, I'm not the person to debate on that. There are lots of other people who could debate on that, but I don't have issues with that.
I loved what he said next. Can you think of a topic we can debate? Because this guy wants to debate you, Jackson. He doesn't care about the topic. He wants to debate you. That's
and I told him,
thing.
Like, I was like, as long as you're not a young Earth creationist, I don't really have a problem with you. I don't have an issue. So, but
again, it doesn't matter what the topic is. They just want to have a confrontation. And again, I don't get the mindset. Like it's exhausting. It should be exhausting, but these people thrive on it for some reason.
Keep in mind the guy's name is Red Pill Apologist, and in his bio it says no filter. So it is probably going to be
also a red flag,
a dumpster fire. Which brings me to a nice segue because I've got a new channel. I managed to get a young Earth creationist to hand over his YouTube handle. So now I own @dumpsterfires on YouTube. It's probably one of the most coveted handles out there. But yeah, I secured it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. But if you're going to debate this guy, I just wanted you to know I have a channel that's called @dumpsterfires. So,
well, I mean, I don't know anything about him. I don't know if I've encountered him before. At least I don't remember if I have. I've encountered a lot of people on Twitter. But I'm not a person for debating religion. There are other channels who are much better at that than I am, who do that. Yeah, so like that's not a me thing. I'm not a debate religion person.
Yeah, I've got.
It's true, holes. You do. We can see right through you, Peter. We see through you, through your deception.
Those are the hornets who have landed onto his arm. The hornets have landed onto his arm.
All right. Anyway, okay. So we're. Oh my gosh.
We're half an hour in. Shall we start the show?
Yeah. All right. Let's get into Calvin Smith's video from AIG.
Okay.
How old are fossils? If you grew up like I did, taught in a state-run school system, you probably have a ready answer. Millions of years.
No, not necessarily.
I grew up learning the typical evolutionary story.
I mean, that's not necessarily true. Fossils, by definition, or by the most definitions I've seen, mean at least 10,000 years old, which is not millions of years old. Like, you have to specify what particular fossils.
I
What'd you say?
love how he showed his school and it said elementary school.
Yeah, that was my observation too.
That's
Like,
it.
oh, as you, yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
He said, "I made it through 5th grade, and that was all the schooling I needed."
Yeah. That was it. Those were the toughest 6 years of his life, 5th grade.
Oh, someone's saying that Peter is glitching out, but I don't hear
I didn't
anything.
see it either.
Am I
I didn't
glitching
see
out?
it.
Yeah, so
I didn't
someone
see
in
it.
the
I
someone
have
says that. I don't know.
I have no clue.
I do think it's funny. Yeah,
I
you
think
might be a redneck.
I
If
think
5th
what
grade was the
I,
hardest 5 years of your life.
yeah, I think what Majestic P-back means is me on video where you can see
Oh,
through
okay.
me
I
maybe.
gotcha. That's fair.
According to my OBS, my sound
Oh
is
yeah,
still here.
yeah. The hornets. Maybe he just came in and observed the hornets. Yeah. Never mind.
All right. Anyway, we can keep going.
Party line regarding rocks and fossils, that slow fossilization ideas were true, and that fossils were millions of years old.
I like his
I
confusion
read
when he
books
approaches
with
the
detailed
Lucy
and colorful
fossil.
diagrams showing that fossils formed mostly when animals and or plants died in watery environments. And
Hey,
there would
pause.
often be references to
Pause. Okay, so we have to remember a couple of things. First of all, we have to remember that the predominance of fossils on the planet are like protists and invertebrates, right? So like forams,
Mhm.
coccoliths, diatoms, radiolarians. So these unicellular eukaryotes. I know Dapper hates when I say protists. Sorry, Dapper.
There's a whole cliff of these things, literally.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. When
a
you
whole
write with
mountain.
chalk, you are writing with coccolithophores. That's what you're using. Protists are the most abundant fossils on the planet. Now, after them, it's like plants and invertebrates, right? These guys are probably about the same.
Yeah.
There
Also,
are
like
lots and lots and lots
oil,
of plants,
and
fossils, and
coal is
lots and
also
lots
fossil. Yeah.
of
Yeah. Fossil fuels are also
invertebrate
fossil. Yeah.
fossils. Do what?
Oh, sorry. Go. Fossil fuels are also
Nestle?
fossils. Yeah. Oh, am I glitching out?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were cutting out for a second because it sounded. I thought for a moment you were because I like cut off very abruptly.
Oh, like I was just saying that fossil fuels are also fossils. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, so when you say watery environments, remember it's not. Most fossils are not vertebrates. Vertebrates make up a very small minority of known fossils. Okay, it's predominantly unicellular eukaryotes and plants and invertebrates. And not all organisms are buried in watery environments, right? Like we have sandstone that preserves organisms, so they died in sandy desert environments. Like what was it, Euphrasia, I think, which is one of the prosauropods or presauropods, depending on which term you like. I mean, they're both paraphyletic. That died when, or Protoceratops and Velociraptor very famously died when a sand dune collapsed on them. That's not a watery environment. That's
exactly
literal desert sand collapsing on them.
Well, Jackson,
Nemegtomia.
but you do know that dunes that they exist because it's they have the fluid dynamics. That's how they form and move about. So yeah, probably.
Or the Nemegtomia, which I think we talked about on a recent show. Jake Nelson for two of the same quotes for $5. Jackson Faction. I'm not going to debate opinions. I deal in facts. Very true. That is what I do.
It was so good. He said it twice.
New York, New York. So nice you could say it twice.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have to remember that. So we do have to remember that there are lots of organisms who died and were fossilized in desert environments, and also ice. There are lots of organisms who were buried in ice. So like if you go to or if you like you drill ice cores in like big glaciers, you can find remains of like you can find pollen, you can find plant remains, animal remains, things like that, which have been flattened out over the years by these repeated snow ice cycles. And actually, ice cores are really neat because you can radiocarbon date them, and you can cross-reference. Well, so first, on one hand, you can like literally directly count the layers in the ice, and you can carbon date them, and you get a congruence between these, and then you can also use events that are recorded within the ice cores, like volcanic eruptions, for instance, to cross-check other ice cores. And when you do that, you get working dates for history using these ice cores. And the ice cores go back, I think, like it's like a couple tens of thousands of years, something like that.
I think so. Yeah.
It's quite a ways, which more than the age of the Earth apparently. So it's a little problematic. But
well, I think maybe God just created an extra few layers to begin with, perhaps.
Right.
Who knows?
Had to have a base of ice, on which to build the other ice, I guess.
And for those who didn't know, you can actually trust radiometric dating, because we did a show on this channel with and I keep forgetting
with the geochronologist.
Answers in Rocks. He's called on Twitter, and I keep forgetting his name, and I have to slap myself for that. He recently also did a video with On Ra, responding to the trolls in the comments, which is pretty hilarious video. If you haven't seen it, they go over the criticisms about that young Earth creationists have with radiometric dating. It's a pretty funny video.
Yeah, he's an actual Answers in Rocks is an actual like geochemist. Like
Yes.
It's his job to geochemically analyze rocks and figure out what their composition is and how old they are. That's literally his job, right? And so and I believe he just published another paper in which they were looking at they look at like cave like stalactites and stalagmites, speleothems is the term for all those things, and figure out how old they are.
He does a pretty good job explaining it to lay people, because the show that you did on your channel, I learned an awful lot from that. And so people haven't seen it yet, they have to go watch that, definitely. And then hop over to Twitter as long as you can, and follow Answers in Rocks. And after you've done that, you can order your copy of The Rocks Were There. See what I did?
Yes, you sure can. We actually are going to have, chapter 2 of The Rocks Were There is all about radiometric dating. So yes, we cover that topic in great detail. It's a lot of fun. All right, we can keep going.
Former inland seas from millions of years ago, of course, in the area where the particular fossil being discussed was found. And I could easily recite standard examples of how fossils form to any adult that would bother to take the time to listen. I'd typically use the canned example I'd seen
so he
and
was in
heard so
elementary
often.
school.
A fish.
Yeah.
So he was in elementary school. He's like he's just reconfirming that he's like, oh yes, I could tell the adults what I learned in checks notes 4th grade.
Well, this is the guy who was on CMI and had a co-host that would tell him something stupid and would completely stump him. You would see his face completely confused by the it's.
Well, is this story going to be basically Who's Your Daddy, but elementary version, basically?
It
right?
could be.
I mean, all of their problems are elementary, so that's very true.
Yes.
Elementary, dear Jackson. Okay.
According to the typical series of pictures I'd seen depicted in a wide assortment of books, a fish would die, sink to the bottom of a lake, and get slowly covered in layers of silt and mud. Then, As millions of years would pass, the sediment got compressed as new layers gathered. The mud would turn into rock, the fish would become permineralized, and voila, it became a fossil.
All right.
I'm completely offended. What and confused as well. So why is he using a clip from a German TV channel? I think.
Oh yeah,
Maybe it was a
Nestle,
non-copyright one.
you should be able to recognize the ZDF logo at the top.
I see it on the. Although I don't recognize it, but I can see what you're referring to. The logo on the top left. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just one that was easy to grab and was non-copyright or something.
Southern German television. Süddeutsche Fernsehen.
So what I'm hearing is you guys are infiltrating everywhere. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm astonished that he even knew about Germany, let alone that they've got television, and then found this clip. I mean, that's
Well,
pretty.
it might
pretty,
be a clip on YouTube, probably.
Pretty smart for an elementary school student. Just saying.
No.
Okay, let's continue.
And so convincing was this seemingly scientific process that I never seemed to compare it to what I'd actually observed dead fish doing, sitting on the bottom of the Atlantic at the end of a wooden dock I'd sat on, feet dangling over the water in Newfoundland. If I'd just taken a few seconds to think about it, I would have easily realized that what my own eyes observed is that dead fish tend to float and bloat, and the ones that were at the bottom were chewed.
Okay, so this is like the central claim of, like, this is what the description of the video said, what this video is predicated on. The idea that Calvin Smith, who is ostensibly not a scientist, probably has no backing in or no background in any scientific fields whatsoever. But what he did here was he said, "Aha, this is what they taught me in school, and yet this thing that I learned in school is demonstrated to be wrong by a very simple, like you said, it takes him just a few seconds to make this observation. Now it takes a special kind of, I don't know, narcissism or stupidity or both, to think that you've made like a pivotal observation that overturns an entire field of science just because you made a simple little observation. Like, do you think nobody thought of that beforehand? Do you really think nobody ever thought before you, hey, wait, fish float when they die? So how could these fish have like sunk to the bottom? Like, do you really think that? Are you that like dumb? Probably. I can say, as someone who works in an aquarium and who has owned fish, is fish tend to sink when they die. Yeah, they can float because fish have a swim bladder, as we've talked about now in a couple of videos, and we're going to talk about it again in the next video. Fish have a swim bladder, and this allows or gives them, a degree of buoyancy. But when that swim bladder becomes perforated, either because the fish get picked at by other fish or bacterial infection or whatever, they sink. We also talked about this when we did our what happens to whales when they die video with Genetically Modified Skeptic. Organisms, when they die in the water, it happens to humans too. I'm sure we've all seen crime documentaries. They bloat and they float first, then the gas and whatnot dissipates and they sink.
Yeah.
This is the normal progression.
They have the baddest fart you can imagine, basically.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. As they decompose, they make gases. Exactly right, Brian Stevens. And then they sink. And so it's really funny to me that Calvin here says, but the fish don't sink. They float. It's like,
they all float. We all float down here.
Float. Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
nope, they never
the-
sink. That doesn't happen, I guess.
It's
I
the
guess
it's the clown from It. They all float. We all
Pennywise, yeah.
float. Yeah, Pennywise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess my years of working in an aquarium, my years of having fish, it was just all wrong. The fish didn't actually sink. They were reverse floating, I guess. I don't know. I was mistaken. Okay, I guess we'll let him finish
So-
this point.
Oh,
I
I've
also
got
want maybe one. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. I had one more thing too because we got a request from Jake Nelson.
Okay.
He said, auf Deutsch bitte. Also wir können das Ganze auch auf Deutsch machen, aber dann haben wir das Problem, dass Jackson vielleicht nicht weiß, wo wir drüber reden gerade. Und Nestle und ich, wir würden alles machen können. Aber wir würden Jackson leider nicht mehr brauchen für den Rest der Sendung. So,
I don't know what you said, but I didn't like it.
Indeed.
Wir machen
Exactly.
wir machen's auf Englisch heute. Continue, Jackson.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what that was, but I didn't like it.
You have no clue what I said. Maybe I completely demonetized your channel. You wouldn't know.
It's entirely possible. I mean, although every single one of these videos now gets like split ad revenue, so who knows? We've probably already been demonetized.
I hope it was.
I actually also want to mention the one fun thing about the fossil where the floating was actually very important. I think you're also familiar with Boreopelta, Jackson.
Yes,
Like the
the
famous-
nodosaur, yeah.
Yeah, famous ankylosaur.
Right.
And a nodosaur specifically. Yeah.
Mhm.
Basically, what happened is this ankylosaur, or specifically a nodosaur, died, and then for some reason it went into the ocean and it floated for a while, and then it deflated, and then it sank to the bottom of the sea.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it was upside down when it got
Yes.
fossilized. Yeah. Yeah. I remember hearing about that guy.
It deflated and started a YouTube channel. Didn't we cover this guy? Deflated just a short while ago. Sorry.
Oof. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did talk about that guy. I actually haven't checked on his channel recently. I wonder if he's done anything recently. I don't know.
I think he has done a review with somebody on the debate between David and Thor debate.
Oh
I think
God,
so, yeah.
no, we're not doing. No, we're definitely not watching that one.
No,
We are
no,
definitely not wading into that. That's not happening.
no.
But I mean, like, I wonder if he's made any like other, videos on his own about like the Cambrian or something like that. That one he did on Punctured Equilibrium was very strange. I don't know, it was very weird. But anyway, okay, we can keep going.
Up by crabs and little nippers quite quickly. And even the bones didn't last all that long. I realize now that I'd been
Okay,
taught
pause
what
again.
to think, not
Okay, so again, the thing that he's missing from his analysis is that when organisms, the organisms that are most likely to get fossilized are the ones that get buried quickly. They get, and not even necessarily buried quickly, they get sequestered quickly somewhere. So, for instance, to give you an example of organisms that weren't like buried immediately but were sequestered quickly, is the Mesel pit in Germany. So the Mesel pit is, do fish skeletons float, Jackson? No, I don't believe so. DM answers in Gojira Wing. Sorry. Sorry, I blanked for a second. The Mesel pit. Basically, what happened with the Mesel pit was you had was it methane and carbon dioxide that would bubble up from the water and would suffocate the animals above, like it would outgas and kill the animals around, and then they would die.
A volcanic lake, basically. I think so. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's like they're coming up from the bottom, they're outgassing, and it's just like outright just suffocating the animals immediately. There were even like turtles who died, mid coitus, right? They just dead instantly. And then they sink to the bottom. And now nothing is living on the bottom, not worms, not bacteria, nothing can survive down there because it's like these ultra high concentrations of like methane and carbon dioxide. So nothing can live down there. Nothing can disturb the fossils, and so that's why the fossils are preserved immaculately well.
Mhm.
In other places, you might have to have like if they're buried in like a seashore environment or something that's
Yes.
depositing sediment.
I also
So
I also think like some specimens of Archaeopteryx were like deposited in a lagoon, right? Like a very
yes,
salty environment. Yeah.
yeah, the Solnophin, that was they're like these, basically they would fall in and sink right to the bottom, and nothing was decaying their bones or anything like that. So so they got sequestered really quickly. We can find organisms in the fossil record who were like partially buried, because you can find like organisms who like gnawed on them, who like put teeth marks in their bones and stuff. I mean, we can find those. We have examples. I think we talked about it in the Eye's tale. We talked about like lemur fossils that had been bitten or partially eaten by like Fusa relatives. So that happened. Dinosaur fossils are the same. You can find examples of dinosaurs that have like teeth marks in their bones, things like that. Which one was it? Was it the Tong child that was like killed by a hawk or something like that, or was that Lucy?
Yeah, it had like marks that indicated a beak or some sort. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
probably was taken by a bird of prey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, like these, organisms, their fossils go through, post-death um, workings, I guess, biological workings, either by being eaten or being partially eaten, things like that. And they can still end up having their bones preserved.
Mhm.
So it happens. I mean, crabs are not gonna destroy everything. There was a this couple that was like in a car, and they drove into a lake or something like that, and the people are like some 5 years later, like these a police team found the car or something, and the people were still in there, and they really hadn't decayed all that much. There was like nothing really in the car that was decaying them, so they were still underwater in the car, but they hadn't really decayed all that much. So
how deep were they? Or is it like a very specific lake where they
I don't
fell
remember.
in?
I don't remember. Sorry, I do
So
not
it's a,
recall.
or maybe the car was maybe closed and nothing would have gotten in. So maybe that's one reason.
That's what I assumed.
I'm really,
I would imagine that.
I'm really
correct,
relieved, Jackson, when you said crabs don't destroy everything, and then started the next sentence with "there was a couple," and I would have think that crabs would have destroyed the relationship, but good save. Different crabs, I guess.
Different crabs,
Yeah.
But no, it's about sequestering the decaying organism. It's not just they die, right? There has to be this sequestering, which of course he's not going to talk about, because he's just going to act like, it's just the organism. I mean, he even talked about it at the beginning. He was like, the organism dies and gets covered with sediment. Like, you talked about this earlier. Why aren't you coming back to it now? Anyway.
He just realized that most things don't fossilize. Like most things decay. Yeah.
Most things don't fossilize. That's true. This is the case for the vast majority of organisms.
But by the way, the thing you mentioned, there is a channel on YouTube. I have no clue what the name of the channel is, but there are a bunch of divers who tend to solve cold cases. So where people have gone missing, and when there's a body of water nearby, they will search the water, and they come up with a lot of people who have gone missing over time. And so when they're found in a car, they're usually pretty well preserved still. And I think one of the oldest is they found this was a case from 40 years ago. So
Wow.
yeah, it does
Oh,
happen.
yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Wilson. Wow. Oh, no.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah. All right, we can keep going.
Okay.
How to think. And I never heard anyone challenge these ideas in class. And like me, due to that widespread evolutionary indoctrination in the school system, most people, even Christians, still believe that it takes millions of years for rocks to form and a living organism to become a fossil.
No, it. Okay, pause. Pause. So no, it doesn't take millions of years for rocks to form. Igneous rocks cool quite rapidly and are. No, that's not at all true. I think you mean sedimentary rocks, but no, like igneous rocks can cool very rapidly from magma or lava into rocks. That's
Okay.
just no.
How long does it take for sedimentary rock to litify? Or maybe the
Oh well, it
quickest?
depends. I mean, I guess it
Yeah,
depends
it
on what
depends.
the sedimentation rate is,
Mm-hmm.
But at the very least, it's going to take thousands of years for that to
Mm-hmm.
happen, because um, there was a paper I looked at one point that was like, um, it was something to the effect of like sedimentary formations made of like protists tend to accumulate at rates of like a centimeter per 1,000 years or something like that. It's very, very slow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I think also Gossip Gibbon had a conversation with like on Standing's channel with like another guy, and they were
Mhm.
talking about the like the litification of like forearms or maybe some other sedimentary deposition of algae. I can't remember which, like limestone. It was limestone.
Okay.
The formation of limestone, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, Gottlieb Gibbon pointed out that the litification of limestone involves a chemical reaction which releases heat, and the
Mm-hmm.
amount of limestone that exists, if every limestone of all limestone was formed within a very short amount of time, then the heat release would be enormous
Mm-hmm.
from just
Right.
from the
Part of the
chemical
heat problem.
reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Right.
all right, we can move on. We can move
That
on
is
again.
interesting. Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
I realize now that a major reason I never doubted these ideas is that I'd never been shown an alternative for how fossils could have formed. I never heard
Wait a
one
second.
person in my
Pause. Wait, is the implication here that he would believe literally anything as long as it wasn't evolution? Is that the implication of that statement?
I don't know.
I
I think
realized
if
the reason I never question it is I never heard an alternative. I don't think hearing alternatives means that you are necessarily led to question something.
yeah,
I don't think that's
that,
how that
that's true.
works.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
and
very
usually
weird statement.
if it's something alternative, that might be the one you want to question. I mean, we've got alternative medicine, for instance, which is alternative medicine because it's not medicine.
If someone tells me that, like, if I'm looking out, if I'm standing in the middle of the street and I look both ways and I'm like, huh, the Earth looks pretty flat. Maybe the alternative to the Earth as a globe is that the Earth is actually flat.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
that was never mentioned in the classroom.
That was never mentioned in the classroom. Yeah,
No.
exactly right.
Dun,
The
dun,
Earth must be flat.
dun.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay.
Well, I grew up in
Anyway.
a time where we didn't have that much of classroom material, and in the older Dutch schools, you had these big posters that they would pull up. So yeah, all our maps were flat, and we live in a flat country, so obviously it's yeah,
All
the
right.
flatlands
Anyway.
of Europe. So, and we still knew it was a globe. Weird, isn't it?
It's strange.
earlier years ever mentioned that a giant catastrophe, especially the Great Deluge recorded in the Bible, could have buried creatures rapidly and completely and formed fossils very quickly. After revisiting the whole idea of fossilization many years later, I realized that evolutionary researchers can't explain many things according to that long age paradigm, which is likely why they've more recently begun to embrace and incorporate catastrophic explanations into their evolutionary system.
Like what?
Like why they've found fossilized animals in the middle of very specific short-term activities and actions, like eating or giving birth. For example,
pause.
A fossil.
Pause. Okay, those are really bad examples.
Yeah.
So the thing with the fish eating another fish is obviously the small fish got stuck in the throat of the larger fish.
Yes.
That's like, you're telling me this man died from choking, but swallowing takes such a short amount of time. Like, what? No, what? That's not how that works at all. Giving birth, the other one giving birth, when organisms die and they're pregnant, the offspring can be forced out of the mother's body as a result of decomposition. Like, again, that happens. We know that happens. That's observable.
Yeah.
That's an observable thing. So these are both very bad examples.
There is an example there's actually a good example which you mentioned previously about the Velociraptor and Protoceratops, but that was deposited by a collapsing sand dune.
Right. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Okay, we can keep going.
Of a squid-like creature was discovered in the southern coast of England with its arm wrapped around a fish with a head that was crushed. This supposed 200 million year old fossil was
what did that have to do with
19th
anything?
century, but was recently re-examined and identified as the oldest known example of a coleoid, a class of cephalopods that includes octopuses, squids, and cuttlefish, attacking its prey. It appears that the belemnoid captured, killed, and was about to eat a fish when, according to evolutionary researchers, both animals were buried in sediment so suddenly by a catastrophic event that they were entombed instantaneously. And obviously fossil.
Okay, okay, again, we're talking about like if sand collapses on them. Like, do you think sand doesn't collapse underwater?
Yeah, and don't you think that it probably wasn't evolutionary researchers who found this out? It was probably geologists or something that figured out.
There are a bunch of evolutionists also.
Yeah. Why does?
Well, they have to be. They believe in long ages, so they're evolutionists.
Yeah, if you're not a young Earth creationist, you are by definition an evolutionist. Even though there are evolution deniers who are not young Earth creationism. I mean,
no, Peter, that's too much nuance for Calvin.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything that is like if anything happens at all, it has to have been the result of a global flood. There is no alternative explanation.
Sand only collapses underwater during a global flood. Yeah,
correct. It never under any other reasons like storms.
We've had
that doesn't happen.
We've had Cypher on here as a co-host, and he did several debates, and I use that word in a very loose form, debates, with a guy called Joe Chenkowski, who famously claimed that the bottom layers were the youngest.
Fascinating.
But, yeah, they were formed first, so they were the youngest.
That's how time works.
If you have siblings, the one who's born first is the youngest.
Yeah, that's definitely how that works.
Yeah.
When I was a baby, I had to take care of my older siblings. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh my god.
There's also a problem that like they always assume that whenever something's buried, it must be due to a flood. But the problem is
Mhm.
that even if you ignore the whole problem of like the destruction of the whole earth by heat, just by the heat alone, even if you ignore that, floods don't tend to make deposits on land. Like at the most, they erode things on land and deposit things in the sea. But we still have things on land deposited, so it makes no sense. It's the opposite. They believe the fossils on like mountain tops, like the Himalayas. Maybe find fossils
Mm-hmm.
there.
Right.
They will say like, aha, the flood pushed all those fossils onto that mountain. But no, floods erode things from high places to low places. They don't push things up. They break things and take things down, not the other way around.
Well, what you have to remember for for creationists in general is that the flood doesn't. It's just a catch-all, right? Like it doesn't. There's no mechanism. There's no actual attempt to reconcile how floods actually work with what a global flood would necessitate. So if anything happens at all, it must have been the flood. Well, it just seems kind of intuitive. So yeah, it must have been the flood. We can just kind of common sense our way through this. We don't have to use facts or data or anything like that. Yeah, it's just fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. You're thinking too much, Nestle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're overthinking it.
We can continue.
Quite quickly before decay set in, because cephalopods like squid and octopus turn into jelly quite quickly upon dying. These types of fossils are becoming
Pause.
well known.
Pause. So
Do
there
they? I
is
don't
a
think they
thing.
do.
There's a thing called the cuttlebone that if you own like a bird, for instance, you probably buy a cuttlebone from the pet store. It's a source of calcium for your birds. The cuttlebone is a piece of like an actual a cuttlefish or squid. This is the remains of the shell that has been completely internalized. This is all that remains of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the vast majority of cephalopod fossils that we have are either shells or like those cuttlebones. Or sorry, I should let me rephrase that. They are either like outward shells, external shells,
Yeah. Like
or those
ammonoids. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like ammonoids, orthoceras, belemnoids, or they have those internal like cuttlebones, things like that. Those are the
You
vast,
you
vast
may get
majority.
you may even get a beak at the most, but the beaks are
Mhm.
also pretty easily degrade. Yeah.
Right.
Degrade.
Yeah. So the vast, vast, vast majority of cephalopod fossils are like either the external shells or the cuttlebone. It's extraordinarily rare that you get like the whole body of or nautiloids. Yeah, it's extraordinarily rare that you get a whole cephalopod because they're soft bodied. And wouldn't you expect if a global flood happens that we would have lots and lots and lots of soft-bodied organisms preserved really well? Because
Or maybe none because they would have been destroyed.
well, yeah, they would have been utterly crushed
Yeah.
by the heat and the pressure and everything. But I mean, but creationists use the flood to say, well, it is the flood is the reason that we have such well preserved fossils, right? But then
You get calamari at the most from the from the global flood.
yeah, but they say like the super well preserved things are the result of the flood, right? The flood happened super fast, so it well preserved everything. But the problem is most fossils are not well preserved. The things that are well preserved are very hard parts. So if we're going to invoke a flood to explain a very tiny number of well preserved fossils, why don't we find these things more often? Why do they make up such a minute fraction of the fossil record? And there really isn't an explanation for that because you can't
Yeah.
have it both ways. You can't both say the flood is the reason that we find very well preserved fossils, and at the same time, it's also the reason we don't find a lot of well-preserved fossils, like it can't
Yeah.
be both. It has to be one or the other. So
Like so some things just got buried very quickly, and some things were like partially destroyed by the. Okay, no. Like, well, what's the mechanism exactly?
yeah, what is the mechanism? Why is it the flood does everything? The flood both absolutely levels mountains and it preserves fossils, very very delicate fossils, really well. It does it all. It's a one size fits all, a one flood fits all. So
Well,
it's very
yeah,
dumb.
one flood to rule them all.
Yes.
Well, and you're not exactly correct, Jackson, because you can have things both ways. There's this website, Young Earth Creationist website. I don't know if you've heard of it. Answers in Genesis, who will post contradicting things on their website. So famously, there's where llamas and camels did have a common ancestor, and in another article, it will say that there were uniquely created kinds and never had a common ancestor. Because in one article, it was about the animals that got on Noah's boat, and the other article was on something completely not flood related. So when they got on the boat, they had a common ancestor that was on the boat, and when you're not talking about the flood, then they were separately created kind. But you can't have both ways.
No. After they left the ark, then they no longer were related. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what happened?
We're still not entirely sure whether it was before or after the flood when they're not. I don't know. It's we'll have to have. We need to do an interview with Ken
related,
Ham,
yeah,
and talk about all these things.
Ken Ham, I don't know if you guys saw, but he deemed somebody else as the head of AIG now.
Oh, tell me it's not Bodie. Not Bodie.
Else...
Not please not Bodie.
It's not Bodie. No, he passed over Bodie. He actually picked someone who I think is even less likable than Bodie, which is kind of fascinating. But Ham is doing some very odd things. He might be dying. Not sure. It seemed like he picked a new guy really quickly, and he's been like weirdly quiet recently. I don't know. It's been very strange. He's been doing a lot of weird stuff recently. It's like, he might be about to kick the bucket. I'm not sure, but I don't know.
Maybe God's so proud of him that he's calling him home now. There's reward.
I don't know. I mean, I don't wish any ill on him. I'm just saying. It seems
me
like
neither.
He's like acting. He's just acting like really odd all of a sudden, and it's like.
Although
whatever.
I do have to say, I did see an interview with Georgia Purdom talking about her daughter. I usually don't wish any ill will on people. I'd make an exception for her because of what she put out. If that child should now be in the early 20s, I guess, and be able to find that video. And so I think she's talking about an adoptive daughter. I'm not entirely sure. But if I was that child and I heard my mother talk about me like that in public, I'd have a few questions. Okay. Anyway.
I don't know.
Yeah,
we can keep going.
Let's go.
For example, at the Creation Museum in the United States, we have a fossil fish displayed that was swallowing another fish while they were buried. Another is the fossil of a horseshoe crab with its tracks visible in the sediment it was trapped.
Pause. Okay, again, this is an example. I know what that one is. That's the Mesolimulus from, I think, also the Solnophan, so the same deposit as Archaeopteryx. So basically, as Nestle mentioned earlier, these are like hypersaline lagoons. So it's like uber salty water. And this little guy, this little Mesolimulus, like fell in, basically, drifted down to the bottom, and tried to escape. He tried to get out of that uber salty lagoon he'd fallen into, and he got quite a ways, but he didn't make it. And again, it's so salty. Nothing. Yeah, nothing else is living down there. There's no worms. There aren't like a lot of bacteria down there. There's nothing really down there. They're super still, super calm, and he died, and his tracks were preserved. And, like it happens. There's actually a term for those super calm limestone deposits. They're called a platinkalk. There's a specific term for it. So, what did you say, Nestling?
Oh no, I was also on the point that it does, like, again, his examples are still bad because this doesn't necessarily mean they were buried quickly. All it means is that it died, and over time the trackways and the fossil got preserved. It doesn't
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily mean quick burial.
Right, because he wasn't.
Again, that there are examples of quick burial, but his examples are not those.
Right. Yeah. I get. Yeah. This was not quick burial. This was sequestration, but not burial. So there's a book I have. Oh shoot, what is the title? It's Locked in Time. That's what it is. Locked in Time, and it's all about. It's like these really cool ichnofossils and like fossils of organisms like doing something while they were dying or things like that. So it's pretty cool. I actually got it because Benji Thomas recommended it on their channel. So all right, we can keep going.
Also, like, maybe one fun thing is like you know the like SpongeBob, where they have like this lake, and they can apparently
Blue
drown
Lagoon.
in that lake.
Yeah,
it's
Lagoon.
it's a lagoon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, then I'm gonna continue. sorry about that.
I still think he could have done better if he asked Ian Juby and shown the dinosaur eggs that were laid on the run. I still think that
yeah, they were laid in a line.
Yeah, that was still one of my favorite young Earth creationist fossil explanations. Never
it's
mind.
So good.
Yeah.
Blue Lagoon.
Traveling along. This indicates that not only was it buried at lightning speed, according to the common geological perspective, but that the right chemical conditions in the sediment for rapid fossilization to protect the specimen and its tracks must have been present, eliminating the need for any kind of deep time process to account for the fossilization process. And even more rapidly decaying soft-bodied animals like jellyfish have been found in Australia, Canada, Germany, the United States, and other countries.
Pause. Okay, again, what cnidarians, which is the group of jellyfish, corals, and anemones, what cnidarians are the ones we find the most often, and what are the ones we find the least often? The ones we find the most often are the hard corals, the ones that have a tough calcium carbonate exoskeleton. Those are the ones we find the most often. The organisms we find the least often, or the cnidarians, are anemones and jellyfish because they're entirely soft-bodied. Yes, we do find them, but only in Lagerstätten, only in very, very well-preserved deposits. It keeps going like, sometimes under very rare occasions, cool things are preserved.
Did we agree? Did we agree to not do this in German, Jackson? Lagerstätten?
Lagerstätten.
Lagerstätten. Yeah, Lagerstätten. Yeah.
That's German.
Yep.
It is German?
Lagerstätten. Yeah, they're both German.
Yeah. All right. We continue.
And this presents an incredible conundrum for evolutionary scientists, because jellyfish decay so rapidly they typically leave no trace whatsoever after a very short time.
That is true.
And the
they do
features
typically.
of the fossil jellyfish discovered are so well preserved they reveal minute details that demonstrate the complexity of the ancient jellyfish are actually very similar to their modern counterparts. That means these fossils formed very rapidly indeed.
Okay, again, no, that's not what that means. It's not that the fossil became a fossil rapidly. It was buried rapidly. That I'll agree. But we have no evidence that it was fossilized rapidly. We have no evidence for that. But also, I mean, I'm not really surprised that jellyfish are more or less the same after 500 million years. I mean, there's not a lot going on inside of jellyfish, so there really isn't that much going on. I mean,
sure. In all fairness, Jackson, I mean, they were buried rapidly during the flood, And so since the flood, that's 4,500, about 4,500 years ago. So that it would have had to fossilize rapidly if it's fossilized now,
if it was
right?
buried in the flood, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
if you
I
believe
don't know much
one
about.
thing, you're more likely to believe the other as well. It's
I guess that's true.
quite easy.
I don't know much about the jellyfish, but like the corals have a very very rich fossil history, of course, because like there's like
Yeah.
specific types of corals at specific periods of Earth's history.
Yeah,
The
so
tabulate corals, I think. Yeah.
yeah, tabulate and rugose corals. Yeah, like for instance, corals did not diversify until we know corals existed in the Cambrian. We have a few examples, but like they weren't really coral reefs were not a thing until the Ordovician.
Yes.
And so then you have um, your tabulate and rugose coral reefs, and that really lasted until the end Devonian. Then the Devonian, I think, knocked out those kinds of coral, but we have our like hexacorals and octocorals, which have survived to today. But yeah, so they've gone through their own evolution. Yeah.
And that was also like in the early like in the early phase of the Cambrian, there was like a very distinct type of sponges that took up the role for reef builders. And I forgot the name.
Archaeocyathans and stromatoporoids. Yeah.
Archaeocyathans. Yes.
Yeah, Archaeocyathans and stromatoporoids were the reef builders. Of the Cambrian, along with like other what do you call them, like cementing organisms like algae, things like that, which were sort of building these reefs. But that niche was taken over at the end of the or at the start of the Ordovician by corals. So yeah.
Yes.
So, but yeah, so I'm not particularly familiar with whatever jellyfish he's referring to. I mean, obviously there are different genera and species than what we have today, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's really not all that much different between those jellyfish and the ones today. I wouldn't be surprised.
And it's also like it's very difficult to like observe the morphology when like something like a jellyfish is flattened into a 2D image.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already basically like little like plates.
Discs,
they're just little discs. They're just a few layers of tissue. Like you've got the stomach, then the gonads, then the mesoglea, which is the jelly, and then the epithelium, and like that's or the epidermis. Sorry, the epidermis. And then you just kind of flatten that, and it's like, well, what are you gonna look? What is there to look at? It's all flattened, it's all squished together now. So
yeah. And corals form interesting morphologies because like they are like colonial, right? Or aren't they? Like they form like
corals, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so like each polyp is like one thing, like one organism, each polyp, right? Yeah. All right. Now I'm gonna move on.
Which means the sedimentary rock they're preserved in hardened almost immediately as well, not slowly over thousands of years. Now, fossils are typically embedded in rock, which means if the fossilization of an organism occurred rapidly, then the rock they are trapped in must have formed quickly as well. And as we just saw,
not what that means.
The fossils and rocks I mentioned earlier didn't come about according to the tales I'd been told as a young, naive, and easily influenced student.
I think that didn't really change. I think he's still naive and easily influenced, but now he's just old.
The tales I've been told, that's what he refers to as in evidence that we have gathered, are the tales that he's been told.
Okay, did I understand him correctly when he says that, like, for a fossil to have formed, the rock around it must also have formed quickly?
Yes,
like, he said that, right?
Yep.
But I'm not sure about it. Like, can fossils form even without the surrounding sediment to liquefy? Like, can a fossil stay in rather soft sediment or not? Maybe I'm mistaken about that.
If I'm not mistaken, the trees that we found that cross different strata, those are formed without any surrounding sediment. Those are formed before, and it's a specific kind of tree that doesn't break down as well. It's
Oh, you're thinking of the lepidodendron,
yeah, the ones that I think they're found in
lycopods,
in Canada, in Newfoundland. I think is one of the most famous places where they're found. So at the time those trees died, there was nothing that would make them rot and disappear. So they just stood there and fossilized without any surrounding material, which is why we have these cross strata trees, I guess.
These polystrate fossils, Peter? Is that what you're trying to say?
Oh yeah,
just like the evolutionists said, don't exist. You know,
that's the word I was looking for. I couldn't find the word. It's I mean, it's 20 minutes past 3 a.m. here, so I need a break. Not all the words are still available at this time.
That's very fair. I can't argue with that. I do appreciate you being up so early or late, depending on your point of view.
Well, it's too much fun not to be.
All right, we can keep going.
The indoctrination most people have received is powerful and sometimes hard to break. Most of us have been told over and over since we were very young that it takes millions of years for large portions of strata we see around the world to have formed. But there's a lot of evidence against that long-age paradigm. Similar to our fishy fossil finds, how would that explanation fit with the clock in the rock found in Washington, USA in 1975? Obviously, the clock isn't a millions of years old construct.
Pause. Oh my God, are you serious?
What's next?
Canard?
What's next? The London artifact?
Oh my God, the boot that's like in the rock. Oh my God, this is so stupid. Yeah. Okay. Oh my God. So for anyone who has not heard this one before, this is like a calcium carbonate concretion. Basically, you have there's like it's like water has minerals in it, and the water is dripping onto this, and it's the rock like slowly lithifies. Or rather quickly lithifies, because this is just a mineral. This is a mineral that we know lithifies quickly and is not at all representative of like any sedimentary strata. None. It's
it's so basically dumb. It's basically what happens in the sink or in the shower when you don't clean it.
Yes,
that's what basically happens. Yeah.
There's
also you really DM? Oh, okay.
There are also several there are also several high mineral springs where you can literally hang up the stuff that you want an accretion to get onto it. So and there's a really famous one in the US where a spring has formed an entire rock over time, and a guy bought this part of the land, and now is making tons of money of people who want to come and see it. It's I have to say it's an incredible place to go and see, but it's not rock.
But I mean, this is not like this is not limestone. This is not like sandstone or mudstone. This is lime scale just covering a rock. That's all this is. This it's as Nessig said, it's basically like what happens in your shower, because you have minerals in the water, and then these minerals form a sort of cake on like the sides of your sink or of your shower if you don't like scrub it regularly. It happens in your coffee machine. This is just this is so pathetic.
Deem answers
bad.
Deem answers in Gojira Wing says, is there a fossilized clock? Yeah, this is the one that fell overboard when Noah aborted the ark, so that's why they couldn't tell time on the ark. That's that clock.
That's why he had to send out the dove, because he couldn't tell the time.
Yeah. There's also like very old videos by Potholo who covered this topic as well.
Yeah.
Very old videos. Yeah. All right. Move on.
Can I just say that we're making great time? I mean, this is we're 6 minutes and 40 seconds in.
Really? Really?
Yes.
6
And-
minutes?
Yes. And
6
we've
minute.
6 minutes and 40 seconds. And we've got 5 minutes and 40 seconds to cover.
I don't think I've ever heard Nestle just sound so like at the end of his rope before.
Like, that's actually impressive how slow we are going.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
And the rock it's embedded in was formed after the clock was, which disqualifies it as an ancient fossil relic. So we know that rocks can form rapidly under the right conditions. And
This
we can
man
find
has
evidence
one
of this
brain
having
cell.
happened throughout
Just
the
one.
world. All those
And he
fossils
shares
found
it
across
with
the
Yeah,
earth
Madame.
are
And he shares it with someone else. He doesn't get to use it every day.
He
So
probably does. He actually the brain cell's on loan to him from like Ken Ham or something.
You got a great super chat, Jackson. You have to.
Oh, from oops, I'm sorry, set my thing down. From Savage Antipodal Bearing Shores for $2, Cobra for $2 says the clock is doing hard time. That is very punny. Thank you. But
I love
it's
that
very
one.
Funny.
consistent
That's
with
pretty good.
rapid catastrophic burial. And the sheer
Does he think the
magnitude
clock
and
was
worldwide scope of them
rapidly,
speak of them
catastrophically
as
buried?
the consequence of the global
Hey, hold
flood
on. Is
described
it
in
okay,
Genesis
pause
6.
for a moment? Is this from Jurassic Park? Is this like it looks like
No.
a scene from?
No, this isn't.
No, all right.
No.
Never mind. Continue.
Jackson, we can't say how long it took before the clock was fossilized because it was the clock itself that was fossilized, so
Oh.
it stopped working.
Mm.
We should be able to see
we
when
did
the
a video-
fossilization started.
Right? Yeah, it's stuck at 6:30. No, it's the clock's going like it's midnight. We did a video a long time, or actually 2 videos a long time ago on this conspiracy theory guy. I can't remember what his name was. But he's not a young Earth creationist. I don't think. I think he was just a conspiracy theorist, and so he was basically buying everything. It was like a smorgasborder.
Mm.
But he was presenting arguments in very loose sense for like what he thought was evidence for humans and dinosaurs living together, or non-avian dinosaurs, you bunch of pedants. And one of them, or a couple of them, were like the clock preserved in lime scale, things like that. Like it was that level of stuff. Some of them I couldn't even verify. Like they were literally impossible to verify. I just, it was so crazy. So silly guy. I don't remember who that was. One of the videos was titled like "More Fun with Fossils," I think. If anybody can remember who that was.
Oh, I was a very long time, like many years, like 4
Yeah,
years ago.
Oh my god! Was it
Oh,
really?
wow,
It wasn't 4 years
remember
ago,
you
was
referring
it?
to it, yeah.
Jesus.
Like 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Oh.
Around that time.
Why?
I also don't remember who the guy was.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. Ah, well.
You only made one response video to him, I think. Only one. Yeah.
Oh, we did 2. We did 2 of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did 2. Oh, I can't remember what it was. Anyway, also DM Wing says, AIG is a bag of fossilized bells and hammers. Well, I mean, this isn't Dapper's show, but I guess we'll take a drink. It's a good point. Anyway, all right, we can keep going.
to 9. Noah's flood. When you realize this was a real event, you can understand that the flood would have swept away plants and animals, creating huge amounts of biomass and burying them in waterborne sediments. This would mean many were buried en masse, which would have created huge fossil graveyards, of which we find many around the world. As one example, mixtures of fossils found together of creatures that wouldn't
it doesn't mean anything. None of this means anything to him. It's like he puts no thought into this at all. It's literally just the flood sounds good to me, so I'm going to call it. I'm going to say this is all consistent with the flood. None of this means anything. He has no evidence for any of this. He has no facts or data to back up his arguments.
And
nothing.
To add to that, some of the mass burial sites those animals weren't buried all at the same time. Those were
Right.
sequential burials. So, and we know this. This was one of the things that, and I have to look up the name. Anderson Rocks talked about on his show, his recent show with Arn. So, and this is what creationists leave out. That we know that they weren't buried at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they claim that was what's happened.
I think there was like a famous site where like one triceratops, like another triceratops, like one ceratopsian species was like herding behavior, and there were many like adults and juveniles buried in one site somewhere in America.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was more like it wasn't a flood deposit; it was a river deposit. Like they were drowned in a river or something like that, right? Maybe I'm
Whoa,
mistaken about
that's
that.
you know what? If they were
Yeah.
underwater and there's a bunch of them, that's the global flood. That's what that sounds like to me.
But there was also
Sounds like a global flood.
there was also a very famous graveyard where they were buried in ash, volcanic ash, in
Oh,
like the super volcano eruptions of Yellowstone, for example. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one in oh shoot, what is it? It's in Nebraska. Donald Prothero has done research on, or he's like literally dug there. Yeah, it's ash beds. Oh man, I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, there are a bunch of ash deposits also. That's also
Speaking about
and
lies.
Also, the tar pits are also a good example. Yeah.
Speaking about lies, and you mentioned him earlier in the show, and I forgot to mention it then.
Beyond Science.
Our dear friend Eric Hoven, did you know that he won the Golden Crocodile Award this year?
Well, you know what? He deserves it.
Potholer 54 did a new Golden Crocodile Award ceremony just 1 or 2 weeks ago. If people haven't seen it, go watch it, because they made up a sea. I'm not kidding.
They made up a sea?
Yes.
Okay.
Fossils found in a particular sea, which was located in the center of the United States, that never was there. And the actual fossil site is also not where they said that the sea was. This is brilliant. You have to go watch that, because basically all that Eric did was parrot another young Earth creationist, and the thing that Potholer does is go look at the source and then see what the source says. And yeah, apparently parrots don't get everything right when they parrot. It's brilliant piece of research. So if you haven't seen it, you need to go watch that.
I did find out the video we did on the conspiracy theory was, the guy's name was Beyond Science.
Of course he is.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a long. That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
BS.
Yes, BS. Yeah, that's right. We did make a joke about that. I think we were like, Beyond Science, BS. Something like that. Yeah. All right, we can keep going.
Coexist in the same environment have also been found in fossil graveyards, like the
Like
Messel
what?
Pit in Germany. Here, fossils of birds, amphibians, reptiles, insects, fish, and mammals are found in the same place. And this once again does away with the old slow and...
Pause. Has this man been outside? Legitimate question. Does he ever go outside and just like look around? How does anyone say with a straight face, like, birds, amphibians, reptiles, insects, and mammals are all found in the same place? How curious is that? They're not normally found in the same like, legitimately, are you stupid? Like, do you ever
Watson,
look
we have to
around?
solve this mystery. We have to solve this mystery, Watson.
Right. Yeah.
He's dressed up like Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah, he kinda
stand
made
corrected.
sense.
It was Matt Powell who won the award. Sorry. Yeah, Festival, you're right.
Oh,
You're right. It was Matt
Oh, yes.
Powell.
Okay, I got you.
It was
Well,
Matt Powell.
he also deserves it.
Yeah, but this.
Very fair.
So does this guy also realize that what he just said is completely debunking the young Earth creationists, where they say, well, birds are in the upper layers because they can fly until the batteries run out, and then they drop into the water, and then they get fossilized. So how is it possible that there's a site in Germany where all these things are found in the same place? That would debunk your flood explanation quite thoroughly. And yet here you are,
I'm
sitting
sure
there
he doesn't think
bringing it
about
up.
that.
No,
I'm sure he doesn't think about it at all.
that's the problem with young Earth creationists. They don't think about things like that. It's
How? I legitimately, as someone who lives in Louisiana, like I legitimately don't know how anyone could say with a straight face that it is unusual to find fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, and insects in the same area. Like, if you go to a river or a stream or a pond, you will find all of these organisms existing in the same place. Like, what are you talking about, man? What are you doing? How does anyone have the confidence to say that confidently what he just said? How does anyone have that? But yeah, I just how does anyone do that? How? No brain cells, not one, not even one. Nothing going on upstairs.
in all
Aerodynamic.
fairness, if you are a young Earth creationist, you have to be a skilled liar, and that's probably what's happening here.
I guess. My goodness. Okay, we can keep going.
Steady evolutionary story that I'd been taught. Not only that, but many of the animals in
What does
the
that
pit,
even mean?
some of which are extinct, while others are just like those we see in present times, are so well
No.
preserved they show color, fur, and food in their stomachs, and demonstrate certain activities like pairs of turtles mating when the catastrophic
Yeah,
event
You
that
mentioned
preserved
that.
them occurred.
Yep. we
Yeah,
talked
you
about this
you
already.
mentioned it before.
Yeah, we pre-bunked
How
it,
long
that one.
does
Oh
it
no!
take
Is he also
make
going
a
to
fossil?
mention the Velociraptor?
Try asking that question with your friends and family as an experiment. Those unfamiliar with these arguments, of course, as a metric of what most people believe about the
If you want to learn, try asking people who don't know shit about it anyway, and that's probably going to help you
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
these ideas. What will you hear? 1 million years, 100,000, 10,000, a week? Watch many of them shake their head in disbelief when
what?
you tell them
What
the
was even
scientific
the
fact.
question? What was even the question? I don't even understand. What?
A week.
What does that
Maybe-
mean?
He said a week.
The Meso pit was like 40 million years ago. What are you talking about?
Formed last week,
And
Jackson.
also the animals just like today. Name one, which of course he's not going to do because he's already moved on. But no, there are no animals in the Meso pit that are around today. There are zero. This is bull crap. And again, he's not a zoologist. I doubt he has any scientific training whatsoever. So, like, if he sees like a bat fossil, for instance, he's just going to go like, "Oh, it's just a bat," you know,
A species,
like,
one species, bat.
Yep, it's a bat.
The bat species.
Whereas, like, if you look at Onychonectarus and you're like, "Oh, well, it is not capable of echolocation. It has these like fingers
the bat species.
It has fingers that extend beyond the wings. It's a bat. It's just a bat. Yeah. It's no thoughts, head empty, brain smooth. Yeah.
Bat is
the horse species, the fish species.
According to the Bible, the bat is a four-legged locust because it swarms.
I don't know, but
yes,
I just look at him. Look at how happy he is.
He's so
there's
smug.
nothing going on upstairs.
He's so
smug. There's nothing going on.
No.
The lights are on and no one is home.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness. Okay, we can keep going.
Day. Yes, that's right. Fossils have been made in a laboratory in 24 hours, mimicking
Really?
naturally occurring fossils to a T. This news was published in a secular article from
Citation?
the University of Bristol called Creating Synthetic Fossils in the Lab Sheds Light on Fossilization Processes, which mentions that the
Pause.
experimental sample.
Wait. Pause. I know what he's talking about. Okay, this is not. They were not making. They were making fossil-like structures to understand the process of fossilization and what kind of like these preservational modes. This is actually fairly normal research. There was also research like that with cyanobacteria, because it turns out some of the some like Precambrian fossils that were ascribed to like what were thought to be tracks were actually cyanobacterial mats, things like that. These are not fossils. These are organisms getting like squished in different types of sediment, and they're looking at how it affects, how the taphonomic processes affect the actual organisms themselves, like what gets lost during this process. These are not fossils. Okay, the actual material has not been replaced, have not been permineralized or anything like that. That did not happen. But of course, Calvin again does not know anything about fossils, doesn't know anything about paleontology, so he doesn't know that. Doesn't know any of that. So, whatever. Anyway.
Or what they refer to as synthetic fossils are compared to real fossils, supposedly thousands or millions of years old, and they were basically identical. The article described the similarity as not just superficial in nature, not just visually, but also microscopically, as revealed using a scanning electron microscope. Scientists even found that just as in the naturally occurring fossils, the 24-hour fossils contained preserved microscopic pigment-bearing structures called melanosomes that reside within the organic films in feathers and lizards treated, while unstable protein and fatty tissues degrade and are lost. This experiment, accomplished using a hydraulic press, shows that under the right conditions, fossils can form very rapidly rather than taking millions of years. The fossil...
Pause. Okay, again, as you just said, it's a hydraulic press. They are pressing these organisms into these remains into a sediment to see what basically what happens to the biological material when it's put under a particular amount of heat and pressure. Like what sort of deformations happen, what materials are lost, what materials remain preserved. That makes sense because they're studying fossilization. What is not happening, though, is these remains are not becoming fossils. There's no permineralization happening, which, remember, is what happens when you become a fossil. Your biological material gets replaced with the minerals in the soil, in the surrounding sediment.
They're basically creating the conditions of fossilization, but they haven't, quote unquote, completed the process.
Right.
Like it's not completed. For that you need to wait a while for that to be complete.
Right. Yes, it is a Trojan source. Yeah. Brian Stevens is right. This is a Trojan source that debunks his own argument. Yes, these are not fossils. There's no permineralization going on. They're not. It's literally just they're getting pressed. That's all that's happening, which is fine and cool, and it tells us about taphonomy. But they're not becoming fossils. They are. That's why they called them synthetic fossils, not actual fossils. So what Calvin is trying to do is a bait and switch. In effect, he's lying. I know, big surprise. What a shock. Okay, we can keep going.
Evidence found around the world only makes sense in the light of a global flood. The rapid burial caused by consecutive water surges and associated layers of sediment preserved and fossilized the animal bodies, and even their footprints and other tracks. 2 Peter 3:3-6 states,
because footprints
first of all,
last
that
very well
will come
under a flood.
Right. Okay, I think this is probably the end of the video, right, Peter?
2 minutes to go.
Really? Okay, because it seems to me that he's not doing evidence anymore. He's going to the Bible. I don't really care about the biblical stuff. Okay, we can cut it.
Okay.
He's just going to talk about this. It's the altar call now.
Do you
So,
want to go to the
I do
next
like it.
video?
Nah, we got 15 minutes left. We're fine. We'll just chat.
Mhm.
I do think it's funny that it says in the last days there will be scoffers, especially since like there have always been scoffers, you know, because
Here's
people
one.
have never taken them seriously.
Here's
So,
one. Offer right
I
here.
mean, it's like Arn likes to say something to the effect of like there will always it's like you know ever since the beginning there have been people who called you guys out on this because people knew that you were full of nonsense, right?
Yeah.
So the way that you communicate to your followers that you know there are scoffers who or you know I guess I should say the way that you communicate to your followers
history
that
repeats
you're
itself.
correct is by saying there are scoffers.
Yeah, I mean,
also the
Christians do exactly
the
the
Galileo
same thing.
Gambit fallacy.
Christians do the same thing with Muslims. They talk about the Quran and scoff the Quran. They scoff the Book of Mormon, which is basically Christianity. Right. So, yeah, obviously that happened to the Bible and to the Torah long before. It's inevitable. You come up with a religion, and there are going to be people who say, "Hey, I don't believe you."
Mm-hmm.
I'm reminded of the what's called the Galileo Gambit fallacy. I don't know if you're familiar with
What's
that.
that one?
It says basically like whenever a crank or like crackpot is being criticized, and they are like, oh, see, I am the new Galileo, and I'm being oppressed by the establishment. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Galileo Gambit fallacy.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I've heard that particular thing used twice only last week. And so the people who love to use it are flat earthers. Weird enough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they didn't believe Galileo either. They took a while because they need to figure everything out. So now we flat earthers, we know the earth is flat. You haven't figured it out yet. Well, we've got pictures. We're flying around it in a space station. Looking at it. Mm-hmm. We've had astronauts on the moon looking at Earth. And we still haven't figured out it's flat.
I mean, what you have to remember ultimately is like at the end of the day, the corporations that are, or corporations in general, are not concerned with what is true with a capital T. They are concerned with making money.
Mm-hmm.
And they will use whatever they can to make money. So if something does not correspond to reality, it will not make money. It's just a fact. Pharmaceutical companies cannot, sell drugs, or won't sell drugs that don't work. They sell drugs that do work. They sell drugs that have been tested on lots of people. Spacefaring companies are not going to send into orbit things that they know are just going to come crashing right back down because they want those things to stay in orbit. And same for telecommunication companies, right? They're going to send satellites into space that work. Oil companies are going to use models of geology that allow them to find oil and make more money. They're not going to use models of geology that don't allow them to find oil because they want money. That's their end goal. It's that simple. And so they're not using flat earth. They're not using, anti-vax arguments. They're not using young earth creationism because these things don't make them money. Does not work.
Well, so there is money to be made from CGI. And Vesta Freya says, do you think the moon is real? One of my major achievements is that Buzz Aldrin, I made some artwork for Buzz Aldrin when he was hassling a flat earther and a moon landing denier on Twitter. I have this thing where astronauts plant a flag, and so I had a flag with Buzz on it, and then it with official NASA shill as a title, and he used it at least once on Twitter. But so yeah, there's money to be made
That's
in
pretty cool.
CGI. Probably.
Okay, can you imagine you landed on the moon and you're saddled with these idiots for the rest of your life,
I can
complaining against
totally
you on the internet?
I can totally understand that he punched one in the face. I would
Yeah,
too.
yes,
Yeah.
I
If-
would.
It's you need to keep in mind that they've lost astronauts in space during the
Right.
Apollo program. Those people were friends. So you've lost friends for an endeavor
Right.
that you thought was important enough for mankind to risk your life for. And now, decades later, you got some idiot coming up to you and said, well, it was all fake. And probably it I would have been able to constrain myself for a long time, but if a guy comes up to you several times, which this guy had done, I
Mhm.
probably would have lost it myself. Because
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, that's totally fair.
Also,
These
very,
guys are
also very,
it's-
yeah.
they're a
But
special
he
kind
has
of
been
freak if
dealing.
they're like harassing people.
yeah,
Yeah, but Boss Alden has been dealing with these people for like years. Like I think at some point you're going to snap.
yeah.
Like you're constantly harassed by these types of guys. It's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. If these freaks are like calling your home and like standing outside your house and following you around, yeah, I can't blame them. I
Yeah.
have at it. You know, it's if you're gonna harass and stalk somebody, then you get what's coming to you. All I'm saying.
As I said, I
Yeah,
don't
have any problem
endorse
with that.
I don't endorse violence, but keep in mind these people lost friends during that whole thing. And that's probably
Yeah.
something that will stick with you for a very long time. If you then get people who mock all of that, yeah, then
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, circling back on the point there was like companies will use models of reality that make them money, and they're not going to use models of reality that don't make them money. And so if your model of reality does not make you money, then I mean these mega companies are not going to use it. Like big pharma.
Jackson,
um,
that's not entirely true. That's not entirely true.
Yes, it is.
No,
Yes, it is.
no,
Oil companies,
the
big pharma. These are all using
Ark
companies.
Encounter, the Ark Encounter.
No,
it's still
they
making
are
money.
not making.
and
They
it
are
is-
not making the same amount of money that oil is making, that big pharma is making, that like SpaceX is making.
No, they make too much money.
You know what?
No, I don't care
Well, I
if they
agree.
can compete
That I
with
agree with.
these big pharma guys, but I mean, if they got the money to build $128 million Ark, they're making too much money.
That I agree with. That I agree. They are making too much money. And their source of money is tricking grannies out of their money to send them some dollars which I agree. Yeah, they made way too much money off of that. And apparently it works. It has worked for them, I should say. But they have progressively like lost attendees of their park. They've lost, progressively lost money. The attendance has only gone down over time, which we know because Hemet Meta did a rigorous analysis of that, and Ken Ham was very mad about releasing the like park attendance, all that. So
it's to be expected, because if you go to a regular museum, let's say a museum of natural history, you will find if you come back in a few years, you will see new things, new discoveries.
Yeah.
What are these people going to discover? Because there's no new stuff coming in. There's no new flood. There's no new story in the Bible that they can make money off of. I mean, he's planning to make the Tower of Babel. So what's going to happen there? Visitors there are not going to be able to talk to each other anymore after they visit it.
Yeah, Peter, when they leave, they're like, they walk in and then God hits them and their languages get scattered. So it's like a
Yeah.
family of 4, and then they come out of the tower and each of them speaks a different language and they can't understand each other. That's the point.
But what are they going to build? I mean, there's no great artwork that we're aware of that was in the Tower of Babel. It was just high. So I'm maybe you could make a few nice zip lines going down from it. That's probably one of the things, because they've got zip lines in the Ark Encounter.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Majestic Peebeck points out that the Ark Park was government funded. That's partially true. They weren't technically government funded. The land was the land that they bought was they didn't have to pay the full price, basically.
And
so technically the government didn't give them money.
They also got $18 million in tax breaks, which they nearly lost when Ken Ham had the brilliant idea.
Oh, that's right. I did forget about that.
To sell the entire Ark Encounter to his non-profit church nearby
for $10.
And then within 1 week had to buy it back for the same $10 because he would have lost all of his tax breaks, which
that's right. I did.
Kind of brilliant.
You're right. I did forget about that. I forgot about that one. I just remembered and they got tax breaks.
Doesn't the Bible say you should pay your taxes?
Yes.
Render unto Caesar. Yep.
Yeah.
Render unto Caesar.
Yeah.
It sure does say that.
I guess if you can avoid it by any means, then maybe.
That was the very next verse was, unless you can, avoid tax, avoid paying taxes by selling your park to yourself. Yeah, exactly.
It's like tiny letters that Ken Ham found under the cover of the Bible, like a little caveat.
They have made up a new word, Neslik. I don't know if you were aware of this, because in order to make the Ark, they had to add an awful lot into the Bible, which is called artistic license. I'm not kidding.
Mm-hmm. It's not a joke.
No, this is the guy.
They are saying that
the big guy who modeled for the diorama with the dinosaurs were in a coliseum where the dinosaurs were attacking the Christians. I forgot his name. He's one of the spokespeople for Answers in Genesis, and he also gave tours, and he uses the word artistic licensing.
That's pretty funny. You know what is also funny about the Ark is some of their models are actually quite good, which is also sad. I've seen pictures of they had some Calicotheres, I think Pakicetus. They had was a Lystrosaurus or something like that, and the models actually looked quite good.
I think their Pakicetus is one of the most accurate on the planet, which is
it looks
really sad. Yeah,
it is very sad. Yeah, when it gets
behind it's by the wooden cage, and you cannot see it very clearly because it's behind these wooden bars.
Right. Yeah. But when the Ark, inevitably fails and gets turned into a strip club or something, someone needs to rescue those models and put them in an actual museum, because I think that they look really good. So yeah, definitely. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours. What do you guys have coming up in the near future?
I had a show planned for today with a Christian. A very likable guy, actually, and sadly that didn't work because Artie's dog Eddie had some issues, was coughing up blood, which in hindsight was he chewed up a toy, so Artie had to go to the vet, and they had to do a thorough examination on why he was coughing up blood. So the show today was canceled. We're going to do that next Thursday. So next Thursday I'm going to have 2 in a row. First on my channel, and then hop over here. And in the meantime, if people want to check out what I'm doing, I'm still on Ross channel every Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesday. We've got 2-hour shows for you reading the Bible and or the Book of Mormon, whichever weird story tickles your fancy. We do in the Book of Mormon. We do have the best names. We've got Hell of a Man, who's an ally to Antipas, who's obviously you have an Antipas in the Book of Mormon. I mean, why wouldn't you? I asked the people who actually the Mormons on the show, and I came up with
the
Antipas.
Antipas. Oh.
Yeah. So my theory is that this book was written by Joseph Smith, which is not a name that stands out, right? Smith. So you come up with the most ridiculous names in order to make people remember your book. You got Antipas, you got Hellaman, a Hell of a Man. And we've had several stupid names come up in the Book of Mormon. It's there's also a guy called Moron Eye. Not kidding.
Yes. Yeah. He's the angel, right? Moroni.
Yeah, that's Moroni. So, but you have a Moroni, and then you have the angel Moroni, then you've got another guy called Moroni, and then you've got a guy called Moron Eye. So,
Okay.
I mean,
it makes me think of the there's the bit on South Park where Joseph Smith is like describing or it's a bit describing like the inception of the Book of Mormon, and it's like dum 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 dum, and then it keeps doing that over and over again, and then someone's like it's just someone says to Joseph Smith like, I don't think this is real, and then it goes smart.
Well, but I did learn a few things. I did not know that a tapir has a penis several feet long and it's prehensile, so it can scratch his back with it can grab things. I did not know that.
Well, elephants can scratch their stomach with their penis. Or male elephants can. That is a thing they can do. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So,
but you know this, right? You're from the U.S. You know that the Native Americans rode tapirs, right? You were aware of this fact.
Sure, they did. Of course, right.
All in the
book my noble Steve.
Things we learn from the Book of Mormon. I mean,
oh my goodness. On this channel, we've got I can finally like think about doing a video again because I've turned in my thesis and all that. So yay. So we'll probably have the Leafy Sea Dragon's Tail out pretty soon. I'm also working on another script for Professor Dave, so we'll see how that goes. I'll kick that over to you, Nestle, whenever I'm done with it. Alrighty, and we'll meet again next Thursday. Assuming that everything goes well. So, thank you everybody.
Quick question:
for watching,
are we going to for next Thursday? Are we going to do the backup video for today?
No, I think we'll do Discovery You.
Dang.
Why did you really? I mean, we can if you really want to do it. We can.
I was so hoping we got into that creature that the video starts.
All right, fine. We'll do it. We'll do it next. We'll do it next week. We'll do that. All right, that's fine.
Okay. Great.
We'll do it next week. Okay.
Oh.
All righty. Well, thank you, everybody.
It.
We'll see all of you next week.
See you next week.